Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to another episode of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. And today we are setting up a base on MINMUS. We have a mission to set up a permanent base on MINMUS, and this is what we're going to launch for it. Now, I've run a couple of tests in the KCT simulator just to make sure the basic systems work, but I have not come close to flying this thing for reals yet, so there's a lot of possibility for things to go wrong. We have 7 crew members here. We do have lots of life support this time. The idea is to send them with enough life support to last over a year, and then we will resupply them at some point or send them parts once we research them to set up a permanent base that can sustain itself with like a greenhouse or something like that on MINMUS. It does have a science lab and a whole lot of crew member. It's got 1 pilot because I have my personal house rule where I do have to send a pilot, plus it means that we don't have to worry about well, we could have a scientist in here or whatever, but we have a manned capsule, so we don't have to worry about remote tech cutting in and out or anything like that. And, you know, my personal rule that it has to be a pilot. Then we have 1 engineer, and that is there to attach some bits together with the Kerbal attachment system and Kerbal inventory system. And the rest is scientists. I think we have, 5 scientists, 1 engineer, and 1 pilot. So anyway, without further ado, let's get this thing rocking and rolling. Let's open up our local flight computer, lock ourselves upwards. Staging should be okay, and we've got 6,500 Delta V, which should be enough to get to MINMUS and back. Launch will be relatively slow. We're starting off with a relatively modest thrust-to-weight ratio of about 1.5, which is sufficient. I mean, I could have given it a little bit more oomph, maybe with just some thuds on the side here, but I think this is going to be perfectly fine. We're going to let our speed get up to around 100 meters per second as per usual, and then I'll go ahead and start the rollover to 10 degrees now that our speed is going up. We're not terribly aerodynamic, but with this low thrust weight, we actually shouldn't get too many drag or heat effects. It would have been awkward to fit a fairing on top of all this, especially with the way these support beams run. They wouldn't have been able to, they would have attached the fairing instead of the main body, which is not quite as good. Okay, let's go ahead and do our rollover. I mean, you don't have to wait for 100 meters per second. It's just the system that I've started to develop personally so that I can sort of get a feel and a consistency about how to drive it. Really, you can really roll these guys over quite a bit sooner. Although, with this low thrust to weight and relatively long top here, there's always a possibility that doing the rollover too early might cause us to just tip over. So it's not a bad idea to have a bit of upward momentum. We're starting to fight the prograde a little bit here. Yeah, see, there's already a bit of a risk of rolling over a little too hard. So I'm going to keep it locked on 10 degrees here, basically stopping us from gravity rolling just a little bit longer. And alright, I think we'll go ahead to surface prograde at this point. So we'll go ahead and point into the yellow circle, which will continue to drift towards the horizon. Probably it could have been a little bit more aggressive than this, but better safe than sorry. Yeah, so here we go. There's design, quite a bit of stuff going on here. The staging is going to look a little bit funky. I did once again bring a little satellite with me, which seems like an easy thing to do. The satellite doesn't actually add that much weight, and it's nice to just deploy 1 extra thing in orbit every time. Looks like our gravity turn is going to be okay. We'll hit 45 degrees a little bit later than we might want, but it's not too bad. Let me go ahead and say force us over to 60 degrees at this point. Just try to push that way. What's our science? Oh my god, this frame rate. Yeah, EVA report. Not going to happen. Just sort of encourage the rollover to happen a bit more, but again, not really overshooting the prograde circle too much. We're getting a little bit of atmospheric effects here, but not too badly. We're getting 0 frame rates. Oh my god. But overall, we are doing okay. So we're trying to pitch down a little bit sooner, and that's going to be fine. Speed is getting up there. I could cut my thrust a little bit. But this is okay. These are, you know, I think these are what, Mach effects or just drag effects or something like that. We're going through terminal velocity, which is okay. I'm going to force this down to about 50 degrees now. Don't want to go too far because we're still in the thick atmosphere, and if we go too far beyond our prograde, we could very much hit the drag on the side that causes us to start flipping over. Well, actually, the drag would be pushing down from the top here. It's forcing our nose down quite a bit more. I do have some extra gravity wheels here, which is going to be helpful. There we go. The air is starting to thin out, though, so it becomes less of a problem. And then once you get above 30, I always say that, you know, you don't have to worry about this stuff too much anymore unless you've got a really wacky configuration or very, very poor thrust weight. We're up to 2.6 right now, although our external tanks are about to run out of juice. So before they do that, I'm going to lock myself... I can wait a little bit longer. In fact, I'm going to encourage this to pitch over a little bit more. So yeah, we are on a pretty steep ascent here. We're actually getting some heat effects, which does surprise me a bit. Of course, our thrust weight is about to drop as soon as we lose these tanks. I'll go ahead and throttle down now. Anyway, just because I definitely don't want any heat effects. I don't have any health bars yet, but it's a little bit disturbing, and we're about to run out, so let's go back to full throttle. Lock to surface prograde. So we're pointing into the airstream as much as possible, and drop these engines. By pointing into the airstream, we minimize the chance that they will hit us. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start turning. We're above 30,000, so we should be able to pitch pretty aggressively. I'm not going to make the roll all the way to the horizon yet, because we're not that high. Apoapsis is still climbing quite a bit. Okay, we're about 40. You know what? I think now we are perfectly fine to go completely horizontal and just try to flatten out our sort of curve here, a ballistic curve that we've got going on. As far as my goal apoapsis here, to go to MINMUS, I mean, obviously we're going to be raising it quite a bit later on. I think it's fine if we go above 100. It's not going to kill us too much. We've got lots of fuel in this stage here, which is the one that's supposed to be bringing us into orbit and circularize us. So I think we've got tons more delta V than we actually need. But actually, it looks like things are working out really well right now for about 100-kilometer apoapsis. I'm going to be comfortable with that. We'll hit the brakes once we hit that, and then we'll just wait to circularize. And that should be fine. We haven't left the atmosphere yet, but it is getting pretty thin. We can preemptively, not that we need this antenna, because we do have a manned thing, but we may as well have this antenna pointing towards Kerbal, and we can activate it. It's not like it deploys or anything like that, so it doesn't get any extra friction. We also have a basic reflectron right over here, which did start off deployed. I set that up in the Kerbal Construction Center. There we go. We're about to hit 100, and it'll drift down. I was going to say lower a little bit because we're still in the atmosphere, but we're hardly in the atmosphere at this point. And a relatively flat little thing. It won't take very much to circularize. We'll actually be able to use some of this fuel to launch us towards MINMUS. I do have MechJeb set up to automatically deploy our solar panels for us when we do get into space, which is a nice little convenient thing. We've got a ton of them. We look like a porcupine practically. I did bring a lot because the science processing lab here uses a ton of electricity while it's running. So not only do we have that, we actually have a lot of battery power as well. You can see we have over 9,000 battery charge. Not only that, but I've got these extra little containers here. These are part of the Kerbal inventory system, Kerbal attachment system, that sort of thing. And if we take a look at this, what we have are materials to build more solar panels and more batteries. I'm going to set up a little solar panel farm on the surface of MINMUS, apart from this, just to make sure we've got lots. It's probably overkill, but I didn't do all the math on the components, and the research rate energy use seems to be a little bit fuzzy. I'm a little confused there, so I wanted to overkill it just to make sure that we've got lots. I'm sure it's way overkill, but it'll give us a good guideline for the future. Anywho, let's go ahead and lock ourselves. Actually, we could set a maneuver, I suppose. May as well do that. Add a maneuver. Let's try to get you. Nope, that is not what I wanted at all. It is hard to grab just the ring. There it is. Like so. Stretch that out. Wait for it to circularize. Close enough. Face yourself to the node and then execute the maneuver when we get there. So right now the ship should turn to face the node, which will be a hard task because it is quite big. Once it points in the right direction, we'll go ahead and start the time warp. And the flight computer is good enough to stop the time warp for us once we arrive, once it's time for the burn. Burn is 531. We actually don't have quite enough in this stage, so we will have to stage one time. The thrust to weight on the next level isn't as high. So we actually would have wanted to start the burn a little bit sooner because the last part of the burn isn't going to be done with the sufficient force. And whoa, that is very wobbly. I think we'll be okay, but I'm not sure here. Kill. There we go. Let's go into kill rotation mode. Time warp for a sec to stop that wobble, and then go to full burn. We're definitely a bit late on our maneuver. Ooh, it's a good thing we're going to be staging soon. Definitely late on our circularization maneuver, but I think we're going to be perfectly safe. There we go, there's the stage. And this stage doesn't have as much oomph, but it also means it's going to be a hell of a lot more stable. And we're just raising our parry. We are raising our Apo a bit because we're now burning late, but that's okay. I'm just going to wait for this to go above 70. I mean, if we can circularize it a bit, it's going to be good, but very soon we're going to start pushing our Apo pretty aggressively here. Still our parry is raising more, but there we go. That's going to start to be more or less circular. Okay. Next step is we want to get to MINMUS. Oh, and I should do an inclination change first. Again, ideally, what you would do is actually launch with the right inclination in the first place, but, you know, whatever. So we are 6 degrees off, mostly because we're basically equatorial, and MINMUS is not. I'm going to try to move this to the descending node. So if this is the descending node, we're going down through the orbital plane at that point. So what we have to do is burn sort of normal, or upwards, to counter that. And as we do that, the descending node marker will drift away. And what I can do is grab this and just move it closer so it's even more centered on the descending node marker. Right around there. And then at some point you won't be able to really do that anymore, but this is going to drop to very close to 0. Whoops. I guess when it goes there. Same thing as sort of the Apo parry kind of thing. Okay, so we have a maneuver in there, 235 delta V. Not bad. We could, of course, make this adjustment probably more fuel efficiently if we combine it with our prograde burn or partway to MINMUS or something, but this will allow me to plan our encounter a lot better. So let's go ahead, hold towards the maneuver, execute the maneuver when we get there. I'm going to let it finish its rotation before we time warp, because the flight computer will start the burn as soon as the timer goes there, even if it's not pointing the right way. So you want to point the right way first, then start the time warp, and then when it's time for the burn, it'll stop the time warp and start the burn, and it'll always be pointing in the right way. This only works for nodes. It doesn't work if you set it to like prograde or something, because your prograde direction changes depending on where you are in the orbit, of course. So this is in 10 minutes. We're going to do that. This is a neat little thing, a little funky on the solar panels. But what can you do? We might pull some of these off. Once we're on the planet, we might, or on MINMUS rather, we might pull off some of these solar panels and attach them somewhere else. But for now, this is going to be fine. There we go. No more time warp, executing the maneuver. And our thrust weight is not huge here. But the efficiency with this Poodle engine is very high. So all we're doing is shifting our orbit to match the orbit of MINMUS. We're doing it here, and MINMUS is over here, which means we're going to be about ready to execute our burn very soon. I won't plan the maneuver yet because I'm worried about messing things up. But yeah, in theory you can start the burn when you see MINMUS rise, but A, I have a hard time seeing MINMUS rise, and B, I think that works better when you've got a better thrust to weight ratio than we have. So what I'll do is I'll plan a maneuver that's slightly before MINMUS rise, and I think that will work. Plus, with planning maneuver, we can actually see the encounter time and all that jazz. And remember, this ship is not coming home, so we can use all our fuel getting there and landing. Okay, we're going to call that pretty good. We're in kill rotation mode. Good. Here, we can kill that completely for now. So, MINMUS, we're going to put it at 12 o'clock. And yeah, we're going to look at starting our burn and a little early, maybe around here. Yank this thing out. Okay, pretty close, but we actually get there a bit late. MINMUS is going to be ahead of us. So what we can do now is zoom in, move like that so we can see the encounter node, and we want to start our burn a little bit sooner. Or no, a little bit later. I'm a little confused, but whatever. Give it a little bit more juice. There we go. Now we've got our encounter. Doesn't really matter where we plan it per se, although it'd be nice to be able to minimize the burn a bit. There we go, we lost it. There we go. So we've got it there. Now, the other thing I should be able to do is focus my view on MINMUS and see where we're going to come in. That's pretty darn good. And I'm a little uneasy about fixing the orbit from here. So we're going to accept this for now. We'll definitely make an adjustment. We could also use the MechJeb tool over here, the maneuver node editor. Wow. It's hard to believe that the change would be quite that big. All right, we're going to call this maneuver good enough, then we'll make an adjustment after the fact. We still have a good amount of delta V left in this stage. We're probably okay, although ideally I'd like to use this stage to circularize our orbit around MINMUS too. We'll see how it goes. We will be dropping some of our weight as soon as we get into the MINMUS sphere of orbit, because we're going to drop that satellite. Hopefully we're going to be okay. Anyway, face yourself to the node. Prepare to execute when we get there. Ooh, it's going to be in 2 minutes. We'll use most of this time, I think, to turn around. I'm a little concerned, actually, about our total delta V. We did lose a little bit of efficiency during the circularization because of the wobble we had there. Our engine sort of had to fight that quite a bit. I think we should be okay, though. Although I have to remember, some of these delta V calculations, yeah, that's actually, I forgot, we got our 6500, but that includes the perceived delta V of this thing, right? Using this as a booster, which is not really accurate. All right, let's go ahead and warp. There we go. It's going to start the burn now. Oh yeah, because the estimated burn here wasn't representative of reality. This one here is often wrong until you actually start the burn, which is annoying. Luckily, the flight computer knew the actual burn time, which is over 2 minutes. That is pretty substantial. And yeah, we're basically going to empty this stage here, which is not good at all. Huh. I'm very concerned, actually. I totally forgot that when we were planning things, it was including in the delta V. So really we have about 5,000 delta V to get to MINMUS and land. And we don't have to take off, and landing on MINMUS is very easy because of the low gravity. You don't need a lot of delta V. But I am concerned. Anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually, yeah, just hold prograde. That way I can kill this maneuver as early as possible and try to plan things out. I mean, the maneuver was basically burning prograde, so this shouldn't be all that terribly different. Although, I don't know, I planned the maneuver maybe with greater precision. I'm not sure. This will be fine. Burn, 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 burn. Yeah, we're going to use basically all the fuel in this stage for the trans-MINMUS injection. But I'm really worried about circularizing our orbit around here. Well, cross our fingers. Hope it works out. Yeah, you can see like all the stage calculations. I think it's not giving me any delta V for one of these because of the direction the engines are facing. So it's giving me a result of 0 with like my 24-second burn time. So that's what's going on there. So we may have more delta V than this is giving us credit for. I gotta hope. Alright, our orbit is finally starting to stretch out. It's still a bit hard to see. There it is. Could physics warp to speed this up, but I think that might lead to more problems. And this will start to stretch out faster the further out it goes, of course. Burn, 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 burn. There it goes. So again, I will focus my view on MINMUS. We're going to wait for this to turn purple, and we'll actually see a path around MINMUS. We're going to kill the speed at that point, and then probably slowly tap it a little bit more prograde. Try to bring us as low towards MINMUS as we can. Luckily, the moon shouldn't get in the way. It's on the opposite side. I mean, obviously it'll spin some, but it's still going to be in a pretty safe spot that we shouldn't have to worry about interception there. As I say that, there was a lunar encounter right there, which wasn't going to help us. Okay. And... whoops! I hit the wrong key. Now we're on the wrong side. and that goes too far, so I got to turn this around. Overkilled our delta V a little bit, or overkilled our speed a little bit and wasted some delta V because I hit the wrong key. Awesome. So this is shifting around as I'm just rotating towards retrograde. So we're just going to burn the other way and swing this over because it's easier to land if you're going around this counterclockwise. Coming around. Go for burn. Very slow. Let's see here. There we go. A little higher than we might want, but there's no way to get really good precision at this distance, and it's actually going to wobble a little bit, most likely, by the time I get there, as I go through sphere of influence changes. I mean, not necessarily, but there's a good chance. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode here. In the next episode, we are going to travel to MINMUS and attempt to land on it. I should probably do that just in case we have problems getting a signal. I do have my KOS system over here. We're going to copy the lander_MINMUS script from 0. This is exactly the same lander script as we used last time, except I tweaked some of the numbers to come in slower. Just because MINMUS is a really low gravity, it is much more reasonable to come in at a slower rate. And this is a giant piece of equipment. I want to be as gentle as possible with it. See how it goes. I actually suspect we'll have to find out once we separate and we get some actual stats. One of the things I can do actually to give me some stats is if I say, here, just kill rotation, that's going to be fine. If I say control from here, it's going to change all my directions. Oh, that's funny. Thinks it has to do this because of the kill rotation. Anyway, just set it to off. That's going to be fine. Now I can get some stats here, and we're looking at a thrust-to-weight ratio of about 2 on this stage. Which should count, like, after detaching this, so that should be roughly accurate. We'll get a little bit better when we detach these as well. So yeah, that's a little bit ginger. Also, our total delta V is just over 500. I'm a little bit leery, but we'll see what happens when we actually get there and things are working. So for now, I'm going to go and say control from here again so that our direction is sane. And yeah, we will see how it goes in the next episode. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye-bye.